Hello, and welcome back to the Money Bear podcast. I am your host, Chloe Daniels, better known as Clover Money Coach on the internet. And the Money Bear is where we get bare about finances, about money, about income, about investing, about debt payoff, all the things. So, welcome. Super happy to have you here. Guys, I have a confession. I have recently been getting into the Kardashians. This is something like I never thought I would ever say, ever. Period. End of story. And in fact, as I specifically have not liked the Kardashian for a set period of time, a long period of time, because I see stuff on TikTok where it's like, Kim's tone deaf message about just get up and work. Nobody wants to work anymore. And it's like, can you really say that when you were born with a silver spoon and you were born with all these privileges in the world? Like, what do you mean? It's not that simple of just like work hard. If it was just as simple as work hard, then, janitors and plumbers and people who are working multiple jobs, they would be making tons of money. They would be considered successes. They would be, insert whatever here. So, like this tone deaf idea that, oh, if you just work hard, everything's going to work out for you and you're going to, be able to make it is just not true, first of all. And secondly, coming from somebody who built their platform off of first a sex tape and then eventually, having the resources from that sex tape to be able to buy whatever and do whatever and start these businesses, but also the fact that she was born into wealth already. It's like, can you really say that? I don't think you can really say that as somebody who didn't just have to work. So that has been my beef with Kim Kardashian for a while. But then I started watching documentaries about celebrities and their rise to fame and how hard they worked. I watched The Halftime by with Jennifer Lopez in it. Then I watched Americano with Taylor Swift, and I know I'm several years late on that. And eventually, I was like, these are really inspiring. These are things that I love seeing women succeed. I love seeing the journey. I love seeing the stuff that they're going through because even though it's not on the same level, I feel like I relate to some of those things. And again, not at the same level. I am no J Lo, but just the struggles of being a woman in a space that's dominated by men and also being a woman in a space that our whole country has been dominated by men for as long our whole world has been for as long as forever. So seeing women do that, I think, is truly inspiring and amazing. And so that kind of like sent me down this rabbit hole of wanting to watch more stuff like that. And eventually that led me to the Kardashians. Now, context wise, I have never watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians. That's like not my thing at all. It has never been my thing. And I've only just recently started watching The Kardashians on Hulu. And I have to say, I really enjoyed it. And I think that watching The Kardashians has given me a little bit more empathy for them because Kim Kardashian, even though, yes, she was born with a silver spoon, she does work her ass off. Like the amount of crap she does in a day kind of blows my mind. Like, I can't imagine running multiple billion-dollar companies, like at least $1 billion company, and then multiple other companies. Also being a model, also being a celebrity who's like requested on things and requested to do things like Saturday Night Live, having a relationship, being a mom. Like, I can't imagine balancing all of that. That is so much stuff. And she's also one of the few billionaire women in our world. And I find that inspiring. I think that's really cool. Yes, she had a hell of a leg up, but it's still really cool to see her rise to what she is now. And I mean, obviously, she in that group, she and Kylie are the ones who have the most wealth in the family. And I think it's particularly interesting to see their journeys and see what they're doing. And I would love to see more about the businesses on the Kardashians because I want to learn from it. But it's also mind blowing to me that like Kris Jenner manages all of it. So anyway, that's been my guilty pleasure lately, and I gotta say, like, it gives me more empathy for the Kardashians and just watching them talk about like trolls on the internet. Obviously, I related to that, and it was wild to see that one, they even read that stuff. Two, that it bothers them after 14 plus years of filming. And it just made me realize, like, even me with that attitude of like, ugh, so cringe, people who just don't get it. Like, sure, that is valid, but also these people, we don't get it. Like, what they're going through, we don't understand. And it's like the more money you get, the different problems you have, and like they're elevated problems, but I can't imagine navigating some of the stuff that they have had to navigate in the public eye. That would be a nightmare. So I feel like it gave me a little bit more empathy for the family itself. And I hate to say it, I kind of like them. I get it. I get why everybody's obsessed with them, because they're just, it's hard not to like them when watching the show. Yes, they can be vapid. Yes, they can be airheads, but there's also just a lot of gems, I would say, throughout the season. So I really enjoyed that, and hopefully, you guys don't all hate me for admitting that. Recognize they are problematic in many ways, and I recognize that they've both said things, or a lot of them have said things that are incredibly problematic. But I think that the way that they handle a lot of things can be graceful, and they seem like people who are trying to learn. Oh, I didn't even mention the fact that she's like getting her law degree. I thought that was a joke when she announced that way back when, but sure enough, she's getting her law degree. She passed the baby bar, and she's doing it. And like adding that to the list of all the stuff she does is just truly mind blowing and inspiring to me. So I guess that's my Clover life update. So today, for the money tip, I want to talk about life insurance. I feel like everyone could hear the groans in the background, but the reason I talk about life insurance is because I get a lot of questions about life insurance. And life insurance, what I really want to talk about is these permanent life insurance policies, specifically IULs, because I think unfortunately they're sold to people who don't actually need them most of the time. And because of how expensive they can be, and because people oversell the benefits of them, we got to talk about it so that you can make informed decisions for yourself. I hate talking about these because there are a lot of people who are obsessed with these products because they make a lot of money on them. But it's my job. It's my job to talk about these. So IULs and whole life insurance policies are known as permanent. They fall under this umbrella of permanent life insurance. So it's the opposite of term life insurance, which is something that you just get for a term. I have zero issues with term life insurance for people who actually need term life insurance. Now, whole life insurance and permanent life insurance policies are policies that are the opposite. You have them for your whole life. They're designed to be insurance that you can have for your whole life, your life insurance. My first issue with whole life insurance policies and permanent life insurance policies is this theory that you would even need life insurance for your whole life. Because think about the general purpose of life insurance. The purpose of life insurance is to replace income that your dependents rely on. So it's if you passed and you had kids and a wife who was a stay at home mom, they would need your income even if you passed. So life insurance, specifically term, is really meant to cover that and for a set period of time. Now, eventually, if we're all doing what we're supposed to be doing, we're saving for retirement, we've got our emergency funds in place and things like that, eventually the need for life insurance kind of goes away unless you're in a specific circumstance. Once you get to your 60s or 70s and you retired, and if you do pass in those years, in theory, you should have enough saved for retirement for you and your spouse. So if you pass and your spouse is surviving, the income's not going to come from a life insurance policy. It doesn't need to come from a life insurance policy. It comes from what you already have in existence, which is your retirement accounts, which is your investments, which is your estate, essentially. So that's the first thing, is like, you have to ask yourself, am I paying for a product that I don't need? If the answer is yes, then why are you paying for it? Now, I get it that once you reach uber levels of wealth, life insurance policies can make sense for you in an overall financial plan, but that's not who I'm talking about today. I'm talking about an average Joe who's not even maxing out their own retirement accounts and has been suckered into buying an IUL from a quote unquote friend who just got into this MLM of life insurance policies and salesmen. That's another issue, is these life insurance salesmen often get roped into these companies that are basically formed like MLMs. They get very little training on the products themselves, and they get no training on the other options that are available in the finance space because they're selling for an insurance company. Insurance companies, what do? They like to make money. So they're incentivized to sell folks these products, whether or not they're a good fit for these people. But because they're insurance salesmen, they don't usually call themselves insurance salesmen. They call themselves financial professionals or financial advisors. But the amount of knowledge that they have about other finance options, other retirement options, other investing options is usually very limited. They've only been trained on these investment products, and honestly, I would like to think they truly believe in these insurance products, because if they don't, then they're just purposely putting people into these plans that are not the best fit for them. But that's one of the issues, is that an average Joe out there who doesn't know the basics of personal finance will see someone using the title financial professional or financial advisor and assume they're an expert in finances, but that's not always the case. They may have just had training in one particular area of finances, and particularly biased training that's meant to teach them how to sell these insurance products. So there's that. But then there's also the misleading claims around life insurance, particularly these products. And again, none of this applies to term. What my issue is that they're constantly touting how important it is to have tax-free growth through the cash value portion of the life insurance policy, which essentially the way that works is that when you buy a whole life insurance policy or an IUL, you're essentially paying for a term life insurance policy, but you also are paying into a cash value. Now, the first cash value, just think savings account that is tied to an index like the S&P 500. And because it's tied to that index, whenever that index goes up, then you get a credit essentially into the account for the value of what that money went up, for based off of that index. Now, that sounds great, right? Like, cool. Like, I'm not only getting life insurance, but I'm also getting this cash value supercharged bank account that's going to give me, earnings based off of what the S&P 500 is doing. That sounds great, but you also have to think you're paying a ton of fees in order to use that. So, not only are you paying for a policy that you may or may not need, which is automatically going to take money out of what you could have going into an account that if you weren't using a life insurance policy, but let's say your policy is $300 a month and your term insurance within that policy is maybe $100, and then maybe you're paying $100 in fees. Well, the only amount that's actually going to the cash value is going to be the $100 that's left over. So yeah, it sounds great, but once you break it down and realize how much you're paying in fees that are embedded into the policy, and that you're paying for a policy you may or may not need, it doesn't really make that much sense, especially the older you get. So when you're younger, I think the issue with young people using these and relying on these permanent life insurance policies as their investment is that they're expensive. And when we're young in our early years of earning, that's the best time to be using our money to be investing into the stock market, not into life insurance policies. And also, when you're young, usually, unless you have a family, you probably don't even need a life insurance policy. So, TikTok is rampant with people trying to sell young people IULs and products that they don't need. But when they're in these products, that's their extra discretionary income that they could have been putting towards their investments, that they could have been using to max out their Roth IRA, that they could have been putting into their 401k, which you're not going to be paying all of those fees. You're not going to be paying for a life insurance policy. And so then more money is going into your investments. And we all know, because we're Clo Bear friends, we know the earlier you get invested and the more you put in the early years could make the most insane difference on your retirement over the long term. But if you're wrapped up into a policy that actually is not the best fit for you, that money is not going where it's going to work the hardest for you. It's going somewhere else that's not going to work very hard for you at all. So that's one of the biggest issues. It's the fees, the fact that you're paying for a product that you may not even need and likely don't need. And then just the way that these things get sold. These folks like to tout about guaranteed returns. Now, what they say is like, okay, the cash value in there, it's going to be credited against this index. And the index, if the index returns 30%, you would think, oh, I get that 30%, but you do not. They cap what you can earn on that index because the insurance company's got to get paid. So if the S&P 500 returns 30% next year, your cash value, it's not going to return 30%. It's going to return whatever the insurance company decides this is the amount that you're able to earn. And usually I've seen them about 15% is the cap. I've seen some that are at 20%. But It doesn't make sense. Why, especially in your early years of earning, why are you willing to use your money to get a smaller return and also pay a bunch of fees for that for that privilege? So there's that. And then what is also an issue is that they tout on the fact that you can't lose money. And I guess that's true because what they do is they put a floor and they're like, you'll never lose money. The least amount you'll earn is 0%, but you will never lose money. And people who are afraid of the stock market see that and they're like, oh, yes, perfect. This is the golden egg of investment. This is the perfect scenario for me. But the thing is, you've probably heard over and over again is that the stock market on average returns 10% a year. That's if you're getting those good returns, those 30% returns in full, but it also includes the downsides of the stock market. It includes the years that were negative 20. It includes the years that we only made 10%. It includes the years that we made 3%. You are missing out on that 10% average annual return because in the years that we're down, you're making zero, but in the years that you're making 30% in the S&P 500, you're only making maybe half of that because this insurance policy is going to cap what you're able to make. So those are, I think, probably the biggest pieces of beef that I have with these insurance products. But at the end of the day, I just want people to make informed decisions about what they are investing in. And I want them to really pay attention to the red flags when they hear that there's no downsides, it's all upsides, that should be a red flag. When they hear it's a risk-free guarantee, that should be a red flag. When the person doesn't seem to fully understand how to explain the fees that you're paying, that should be a red flag. If somebody's reaching out to you and they're like a friend, like boss babing it up and telling you, hey, long time no see, have you heard about this amazing new investment? When you hear the fact that these products are called so many different names as a way to confuse you, that should also be a red flag. So, as you'll note, these products are sold, they're not bought. People don't go out and look for IULs most of the time. They're sold to people. They are being pursued by a salesperson who is trying to sell them, whether on TikTok, whether on Instagram, or whether it's some friend down the street who you used to go to school with in high school and they're reaching out and saying, hey, have you considered this policy? Index funds, Roth IRAs, 401ks, those are not sold to you. Those are options, those are tools that you can use for very low fees, low cost, sometimes completely free to invest in yourself and to get the returns that you control. Your insurance policies, you don't control any of that. It's the insurance policy that controls it. So personally, I think we're all better off educating ourselves and controlling our own money and deciding where it goes and how we want to invest it and being able to make informed decision on those products. Maybe you've done your research and you've decided, you know what, yes, I agree. I'm going to continue to max out my 401k. I'm going to continue to max out my Roth IRA, but an IUL makes sense for me for this particular purpose. But generally, the way that these are sold, they're sold to people who don't actually need them. So stay safe out there. If you have questions, you know to find me on Instagram, to drop into my DMs. I can absolutely send you more posts that are probably a little bit less rambling than what I just did. But insurance, I don't like talking about insurance because of how often I get trolled about it. And at the end of the day, I'm only trying to make you guys make informed decisions about your own products. I'm not selling you anything. And that's all I can do. So always do your own research and make sure you fully understand something before you decide to go buy something. And also make sure you understand your other options. Because personally, I think that there are better options than relying on insurance products for your investments. I don't see myself ever using an IUL or a whole life insurance policy unless I get to the point where I am so wealthy that I want to preserve some of my money. That, in that case, I can see the purpose of a whole life insurance policy. Not even an IUL. I could see the purpose of a whole life insurance policy. IULs, I don't see a lot of purpose for, to be totally honest. But eventually, if I had so much wealth that I was like, a portion of this I want to use for preservation in a whole life insurance policy, I could see myself doing that. But I don't see myself doing that right now. I should correct myself and say that. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that answers some of your questions. I know this stuff is really confusing, and IULs specifically are meant to be confusing. But yeah, if you have questions, drop into my DMs and we can discuss. But anyway, on to the guests today. I am particularly excited about this one. I've brought on Vanessa from Wonder Onwards, who is a queen. She is the queen of travel hacking. She is also now the queen of moving abroad, taking your job abroad, getting a job abroad. She works in tech abroad and she's been living abroad for over 10 years now. So she's kind of the queen of geo arbitrage, and it was an absolute joy to hear about doing that, and how she does that now. So we talk about building wealth in sorry, delete that part. We talk about building wealth as an expat abroad. We talk about how to invest as an expat abroad. And we talk about her journey of figuring this stuff out from abroad, because it gets real complicated when you're anybody who's chosen to live outside of their home country, figuring out the retirement systems and how do you invest and how do you pay taxes and all of that. Vanessa has been through all of it, and now we've got some information that she has paved the way for. So I am super excited to share that with you guys today. So let us get to it. Oop, wait, but before we do, be sure to hit subscribe, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to us. It helps us out a lot. And of course, since we are talking about finances on this journey, please note that none of this is meant to be financial advice or legal advice or investing advice. It is all for educational purposes only. If you want to see our full terms and conditions, check out clover.com and just search for terms and conditions. So that's about it. Let's get right to it. Hello. Welcome back to the Money Bear podcast. I am super excited to bring on one of my friends who actually, funny story, I started following her way back in the day, 2013, 2014, I want to say, when Miss Wonder Onwards was in China and she was sharing her journey. And I remember she had an article that went super viral. It was like 23 things to do before you turn 24 that isn't getting engaged. And I remember seeing that and being like, oh my God, this chick rules. Following her journey. And we happened to be in China at the same time as well. So way back in the day, that's kind of how I was first introduced to Vanessa from Wonder Onwards. And then fast forward like 5-6 years, turns out Wonder Onwards is now focusing on finance and wealth building as well, and no longer living in China, just like me. And I was like, hey, girl, me too. So we are bringing on Vanessa from Wonder Onwards today. Vanessa, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that our careers have gone in like such different paths, but we keep like running into each other and intersecting in some way. That's amazing.
Right? And it's like, what are the chances that, like, first of all, there's so few people, Westerners, who have lived in China, first of all. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that, like, we both entered into the finance and wealth building space around the same time is just wild. Like, we were meant to be friends.
Obviously. And I cannot wait to host you in my beautiful German apartment that is a much better price point than anything you could get in America.
Yeah. So I go to Berlin pretty frequently. I was supposed to go this year, but because of the road trip, I kind of pushed my international travel aside, but I'll probably be there early next year. Unfortunately, it will be the winter, but you know, at least I'll get to see some friends and finally meet you in real life.
Yay! I will feed you. It will be fine. Do not worry about the cold.
I can't wait. I can't wait. So anyway, I brought Vanessa on because a lot of the questions that I get and don't feel prepared to answer often revolve around, hey, I am an expat living in insert country here, and how the heck do I start investing? And so I often refer people to Vanessa because Vanessa has lived it. You've lived abroad for how many years now?
Next year, it's a decade.
A decade. I mean, that's a long time. But before we get into kind of like the strategies and things that you learned how to do while living abroad and investing and doing your wealth building journey, first, tell everybody who you are, what you do. Give us your elevator speech.
Cool. So, hi guys, I am Vanessa. I am a proud Chicana, originally born and raised in Los Angeles, California. In 2013, I moved abroad by myself as a 21-year-old, a young lady with like 2 suitcases and a dream. And I went to China first, then found myself in London doing my master's, got my first tech job there, and was there for 6 years. Now I'm in Germany for the last 2 years with my beautiful husband and cat. And while I'm not, or when I'm not working at my full time tech job, I am on Wander Onwards, helping people pursue financial and location independence. So head on down to Wander Onwards on all social media, and I can't wait to see you there.
Yes, I mean, her accounts will make you want to pack up a suitcase and move abroad pretty much immediately. So be warned that that's what you're getting yourself into.
Worst things have happened.
Right, right. So kind of tell us a little bit, what was your money journey from, take us from China, because you and I were both not money savvy when we were living in China, the how do you even call it? Mid 2010s? Like
Okay.
the tens, like that's not how you say it. Kind of take us through what has been your journey and what led you here now.
Yeah, well, I guess like most fresh out of college young people with no money, I got into serious credit card debt, like $12,000 on my card that I just assumed like my parents would help me with, or like I would figure out how to pay somehow. But that was when actually my family was going through like serious financial crisis to the point where they didn't even have money to like bring me home from China when I had
Mm,
several emergencies. They were like, put it on a credit card and pray, girl. So I very much got myself into a little bit of a credit card hold with my student loans. I had over $100,000 of student loan debt. And so I basically put my head in the sand until I was 26 with my first job in London, finally making a little bit of money and like trying to figure out what to do with that money. And as I started paying down my debt, I was thinking to myself, there has to be something else I could do with my money. And I started reading all the classic books, The Simple Path to Building Wealth. I was searching all the blogs, all the YouTube channels, and I couldn't find anyone that looked like me, came from
mm.
where I came from, was a woman. Very, very easy qualifier, not many there. So I was like, well, fuck it. I am going to create my own channel. And I'm just going to document the good, the bad, the mistakes that I made, the wins that I made. And lo and behold, now I specifically target like expat personal finance customers, and I've been paid like actual money to talk about my problems with money, which just blows my mind. Like,
Right.
who would give me money to talk about all the debt I put myself into?
My God, I love that. It's truly wild. And that's why even when I have people who reach out to me now and are like, I really want to start a channel because I love this stuff and it's something that I want to do, but I don't have my finances in order yet. And I'm like, hey, people love to see the journey. So it's like you don't have to wait until you have everything in order to start teaching people the mistakes that you've made, how you corrected those, and like figuring it out as you go. Cause I did the same thing. Is like I started without knowing anything about personal finance. I was just kind of like, here is all my dirty laundry and watch me kind of figure this out and work my way through it. And like, because of that, I think it held me accountable to keep learning because it was like, suddenly I had a small audience who cared what I was doing. And at least I told myself that, in the early years, nobody cared, but, eventually got to the place where I knew something and I could provide even more value. But I think there's so much value in sharing the dirty laundry of our journeys as well.
100%. And I'm actually deeply embarrassed by my old branding when I was like first trying to make the pivot. It was like so chunky. So I use like Adobe Spark to try to pull together these graphics of like explaining how I organize my money and like what percentages I was throwing to debt versus investments. And actually, quite a few people unfollowed me because of this pivot. And you know what? I just like held it in my soul, and I was like, you know what, Vanessa, you don't want to be a pretty girl taking pretty pictures in pretty places anymore. Like, this is not
Yes.
the vibe. Let these people go and move on with their lives and stay true to the topic and theme that you're passionate about. Otherwise, you'll
Hmm.
never be able to sustain all of these different things.
Oh my God, you were preaching to the choir. I completely agree because I did the same thing when Clo Bear first started. It was just a blog that was talking about my mental health and talking about relationships, which is funny because people still, the favorite content is always when I'm talking about my dating life. And I'm like, you guys know I have an entire blog with hundreds of blog posts of talking about my dating life in my earlier years. And I'm sure a lot of it is cringe now. But when I started posting about personal finance, I was like, ooh, my teeny tiny following that I had, and you actually had a following. I was like, oh no, they're not going to want to hear about this. But I knew I didn't want to write about mental health and relationships anymore. I wanted to write about money because I feel like money, to me at least, was the single most powerful thing to get my life together. And it's like nothing, the therapy, the traveling the world, the living abroad, all of those things were great and amazing life experiences, but nothing changed my life like getting my money right changed my life. And I don't know how you feel. Is that the same for you?
+1 retweet. Like, I think the point of having your finances together is to give yourself options. And so when
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic hit and like my kind of travel, kind of money blog started tanking because nobody was traveling, I took it as an opportunity to like really commit to the reinvention of myself. Partially because that's where like my thoughts and opinions were just going at the time, but also partially as self-preservation. My travel blog, my travel like sites were not going to make any money during a global pandemic. And
Right.
so I saw it as a vehicle to protect myself, sustainable income sources. It just so happened that people started enjoying it and like really buying into it. And from that, I was given so many other options about what I could do with my time, money, and energy.
Yeah, and true. And I think at the time too, if I remember correctly, were you also working for a travel company?
I was.
Yeah.
I worked full time in travel tech, and I was like, it's just only a matter of time before I get my pink
Right.
slip, and it was
Right.
pretty fucking terrifying. Can I swear on this podcast?
100%. Please do.
Okay, good. Don't play this with small children around.
I love a few F bombs in, and she's like, wait, can I say that? Can I do that? I'm like, yes, please bring it on. The more F bombs in this show, the better.
Well, you're gonna get absolute like transparency from me. Like I think that's the
And
best
that's what
part
I
of our
love.
platforms and why we vibe so much, because a lot of people try to focus on like perfect imagery, perfect graphics, a perfect story. It's like, no, you
Hmm.
come to our platforms for like the dirty truth of how we got here. And like still to this day, we're both trying to like navigate being 30 something year old women in like a very like male dominated space online.
Yeah.
And every single day, we get the pleasure of being bullied online for being women in the money space.
Yep, yep. And it's like it is a safer route to try and be perfect all the time, but like what kind of like to me being perfect all the time, showing the highlight reel is so not helpful. Like yeah, it may look nice, it may be pretty, but it's like where do you learn from that? Like to me, I learn by the mistakes, I learn by the truth, and I also never want to paint this picture that getting your finances in order is a perfect like it's all perfectly aligned. It's like I still make mistakes, I still have mess ups, and it took me a really long time to even get to a point where I am right now. And it's not like I'm not a multimillionaire yet, but I think that real journey is, in my opinion, a little bit more helpful than the like everything is perfect all of the time.
100%. And people are going to love you for showing that side of you. If you are thinking about like starting your own channel or like just putting yourself out there, you're going to be able to connect with people who are just like you if you want to be in this space by just opening yourself up to it.
Truly and completely. Amen. Completely agree. All right. So let's transfer into your wealth building journey because, as those who are listening who are expats who have or even thought about it, but this maybe is holding them back, it's not really very easy to try and figure out how to invest as an expat. There's not a lot of information out there. And the thing is, it differs by country. So, kind of take us through what was your experience like figuring out how to save for retirement as an expat living first. I'm assuming you weren't saving for retirement in China.
Nope.
So,
We would never see that money.
right? I wasn't either. I did nothing. I did nothing while in China except for like hoard some money. But so for you, this started in London, it sounds like. What was the journey like? What are some of the things that you discovered along the way?
So when I first got my big girl job where they actually gave me a company pension, I was like, oh no, you're not gonna give me like 120 pounds that is like rightfully mine. Like whatever this is, it's a scam. Like I don't why are you taking my money for retirement? I won't even live that long. And so when I got that paperwork, I took it to my mentor at the company, and he was like, well, actually, this is how it works. You should read The Simple Path to Wealth. It's actually from America. So I think you would really resonate with it. And because he gave me that book, I decided to keep my company pension. And I didn't realize at the time, but this is one of the only ways that Americans can invest abroad, unfortunately. So if you have a company sponsored pension, that is considered to be as a proxy. So you yourself are not investing in these funds. A proxy is doing it on your behalf. And the IRS is like, okay, that's good. If you try to open a private pension yourself, that becomes like this really intricate pattern where sometimes you pay more to file that paperwork with like a third party that does it with you, um, more than the interest or dividends they would pay you. So
Mm,
the
okay.
math ain't mathing up, okay, y'all.
Okay.
Do not open a
For
private pension.
so for those who are in the US and hearing private pension and all of this stuff, can you break down what is the difference between like a 401k or an IRA in the US and a pension that you get through your employer abroad?
So this is actually so funny. So our pensions here in Europe, they act as different vehicles. So they would almost be like an account that we would have in the United States. So the 401k, the 403b, the 529. A pension is just some sort of retirement account over here in Europe that could be government sponsored, that could be company sponsored, that could be something you open by yourself.
Mm,
In America, we have a very different relationship with pensions. They're like something that the boomers got and we will never see.
right.
But it's essentially just a retirement account that is often invested in funds, or if it's a government one, they actually have a pot of money in the government that the young people pay into and the old people take out of. And that's how the German system works here.
And so like
Unfortunately, we have
Social
still,
Security.
yes, like Social
Gotcha.
Security,
Okay.
but actually it'll give you more money than American Social Security. So
Okay.
uh unfortunately we have a real like downward turn in like birth rates here in Europe. So there are more old people that need pension access than young people to pay into the pension.
Mm.
So go to wanderonwards.co and grab a job abroad and help us keep this raft afloat, y'all.
Yes, that's a perfect plug, but for real. Interesting. So I don't know if I ever realized that when we use the term pension abroad, it's really just referring to different account types. I thought the same thing that, you were just explaining of like US pensions, because US pensions, it's like, oh yeah, either your company pays into it or you pay into it, and then you get like it's like an annuity, where you get this certain set amount over a set period of time. But the way you're describing it is it's an account and you still get to decide what you're investing in. Is that true?
It depends. So if you have
Okay.
the private pension, you get to pick. If you have a company pension, there's like three options sometimes: risky, moderate, high risk, blah, blah. You get to pick one of those. The government pension, it's not invested in anything, more likely
Mm.
than not. It's just young people paying into the pot, old people taking from the pot.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Already
Mhm.
learning stuff on today's podcast, guys. Okay. So
That's what we aim to do.
that's what we're here for. Okay. So you got the pension. And also, can we just shout out your mentor for you got so lucky? Like, what are the
I know.
chances that your mentor was into A Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins? Like, what are the chances?
Zero to none. And like Sam Richards, if you are listening to this podcast, I miss you. I hope you're doing a great thing as the new VP of that new company. But it was luck that someone took an interest in me and my future. And that actually gave me the confidence to like start talking about it with other people, because I know
Hmm.
not everyone has a Sam Richards to like mentor them and to like start opening their eyes to what could be there. So that's why we're here, guys.
Yes, no, I love that. Okay, so after figuring out, like, okay, I should be investing in this pension, I'm gonna go ahead and do that, which in my mind is very similar to a 401k. What then did you explore for other options to further invest? Because most expats, and correct me if I'm wrong, are not going to be contributing to Roth IRAs in the US unless they're not excluding their income from the foreign tax exclusion. Is that accurate?
Almost. So
Okay.
there are two options for filing when it comes to being abroad. You can use the foreign earned income exclusion or the tax credits, but you can also use a blend of both, which just like blew
Mm.
my mind this year. I was like, you can do that. And so based off of hoarding, at some point you need to be using tax credits in order to be eligible to file a Roth IRA in the States.
Mhm.
However, if you have a spouse and they're not filing in the United States, your Roth contributions drop down to zero. So you can't
Oh,
do it.
so like in your scenario, who you have a husband who is a German citizen, he's obviously not filing to do, a Roth IRA in the United States. That automatically excludes you because of that.
Exactly. But here's the
Wow.
trick. You contribute to a normal IRA and you do a backdoor conversion. And then for some
Oh.
reason, you're able to do that in the eyes of the IRS.
The
Completely legal.
loopholes are so stupid. They're so dumb. It's like
Agreed.
why even have that rule in place if you have this super easy loophole? So essentially you can still do a backdoor Roth IRA, but you cannot do a direct contribution to a Roth IRA, but you can start using traditional IRAs and converting.
Correct, correct. And this is for
Okay.
married people filing separately or like one party not filing at all.
Okay, interesting. And so you just discovered that this year because previously you weren't contributing to IRAs, right?
Nope, I was just
Wow.
doing a normal taxable brokerage. So here's the weird part of like expat personal finance. So in Germany, unless you sell your stocks, bonds, whatever it is, and then make a profit, those contributions don't really get counted for tax purposes. Like you just
Mm,
allow that to continue to happen until you realize the gains that you've made. So when I invest in my brokerage in the United States, I report the whatever like things I've done there to Germany, and then Germany gives me a bill or doesn't. So
mhm.
essentially, it is still quite favorable to invest in a normal taxable brokerage in the United States because depending on what the government situation is in your country, you could be earning money and interest, etc in that but it's a really nuanced conversation, and if
Mhm.
you want to do this, I would recommend using my expat taxes as a way to like reconciliate those earnings and to figure out where and when you're paying that tax.
Yeah, that is really interesting because, like you said, in a taxable brokerage in the US, for those of you who are listening who don't know how taxable brokerages work, anytime you're making capital gains, which is just when you buy a stock for $100 and you sell it for $200, you got to pay taxes on that profit. That's why using retirement accounts is so beneficial, because you don't have to. You either defer it or it grows tax free, depending on what kind of account you're using. But you're saying in Germany, even when you're making those capital gains or getting paid dividends, in your taxable account back home, they're not going to tax you on it yet until you pull it out, or just never.
I believe it's until you pull it out because it's realized capital
Gotcha.
gains. But consult a tax expert, y'all.
Yes.
I I did pay capital gains tax in the United States this year because I was
Hmm.
paid dividends for some of my index funds. But that was like
Hmm.
$200, and I have a
Right.
lot of money in the market right now. So it is a pleasure for me to pay $200 to the United States government, for me to not pay anything to the German government, and it's a privilege to even be able to pay tax. That means you're making money.
Right, right. That's the thing that people sometimes get hung up on, is like, oh, but the taxes of a 401k or the taxes of a traditional IRA. It's like, yeah, you made money. Like, well, why are you
Yep.
complaining?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need to move away from like this fear of taxes at an unreasonable scale because Did you hear that Shakira's up for like 9 years in jail for circumventing taxes in Spain?
Yes, I'm like, "Oh, girl," like, it's serious, like, people don't realize, like, if you don't pay your taxes or you attempt tax fraud, that is jail time, that is prison time, like, they are going to take a cut of your money, and if you, refuse or find a way around it that is not legal, that is a crime, that's an actual crime.
The like extra stakes you have as an expat is if you're committing tax fraud in your new country and you are an immigrant, an expat, whatever you want to call yourself, they will send your ass home. They do not
Yeah,
care. So don't fuck with your situation just to save a couple extra $100 on like interest paid or income. Like just be above board so you can focus your energy on like other money making income sources instead of worrying in the background if you're going to get caught.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Why it's wild, the way people prioritize some things.
Agreed. Agreed.
So for you right now, it sounds like your kind of portfolio is partially in a pension, partially in a taxable brokerage, now partially in a backdoor Roth IRA. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
So I also have a government pension here in
Okay.
Germany. So in Germany, we have a point system, and you can get max 2 points a year, minimum half a point. And when I'm at retirement age, they're going to look at the group of the points and say, okay, calculating inflation into the cost, Vanessa will get 2,000 euro every single month until she dies. And it never
Gotcha.
runs out. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so people live their entire retirement on just these government pensions, which is not easy because many of
Mhm.
them are only making half the point. And I'm very fortunate to have a high paying job and I'm paying a lot of tax. So I get the full 2 points every year.
Mhm.
But it's just like extra security in my mind that I know I'll be ready and prepared for retirement, even though I didn't have like a 401k when I was living in the States or anything like that. And I got started a little bit later in life.
Yeah, no, that's really nice. And that's what I always think of when people talk about, like, living in Portugal or living abroad somewhere that has a higher tax rate. Cause I know Germany's tax rate is closer to 40-50%, right? Yeah.
Yep,
And
correct.
people hear that and they're like, oh, I could never live there. They're gonna take all my money. And it's like, yeah, but you get free healthcare. You know you'll be able to retire. You also get don't you get free college in Germany as well?
Correct.
I would happily pay 50% of taxes to make sure that we had a more equitable and more accessible like system that we do not have here. It's wild to me.
No, and the real kicker is I was doing a TikTok about comparing my tax rate here in Berlin versus what it would be in New York City. There was
Mhm.
a difference of $300.
That's it.
$300, that's it, per month. The difference between if you made 100K here in Berlin versus the versus New York, because New York has federal tax, state tax, and New York City tax.
Yep.
So not only are you not getting healthcare or like social security or like unemployment insurance or healthcare slash college, you are also paying the same tax as me in a much, much, much higher cost of living. Ask me what my monthly budget is here in Berlin.
Girl, what is your monthly budget in Berlin?
It's 1,700 euro
For everything.
for everything. My rent, my food, transportation, everything.
That's insane. That is crazy. Like, and not only that, Berlin is a major city. It's huge.
Yep.
There's tons of amenities just from living there. That's wild to
Hmm.
me. And then like even in that TikTok where you're comparing the two, we're not even addressing the fact that you're saving money on your healthcare. You're saving money by not having to worry about retirement. You're saving money by if you ever went to school or whatever, that's free to you. Like yeah, to me, it's not as black and white as people like to make it seem.
No, it's not. And that's really what Wander Onwards is all about, like exposing people to the different styles of living around the world because maybe Germany's not for you, but we can find you someplace where you really belong, where your values are aligned with the government, with what the people want. And I think, or I hope that Americans are starting to realize that there is a different way of living out there. We are not
Mhm.
collapsing under socialism under here. We're not like running with bloods in the streets. It's okay to give people health care.
Yeah, it
It's
sure
that
is.
simple.
So I have a couple of questions that are coming up as we're talking about this. Do you know, so if you move to Germany, we'll just use Germany as an example, what is required for you to be able to start getting free healthcare? Like, is it just that you have to be living there, or do you have to have a German sponsored job, or like what are the requirements?
So in Germany, it is compulsory to have health insurance. And so
Okay.
what that means is you can either get it through your job. There is a government public system called TK. There's a variety of ways you can get health insurance, but it's like legal that you have, or illegal to be uninsured here.
Okay.
So the way that you get access to this is you need a viable visa. So that's not a tourist
Mm,
visa where you're here for 90 days. That's a student visa, a spouse visa, a work visa, a temporary work visa, an entrepreneur visa, literally anything that will just create a formal footprint for you in this country.
okay.
On average, you're going to pay about 250 to 400 for your insurance here. If you are young and you decide to be privately insured, so with outside of the public healthcare,
Hmm.
it'll be even lower than that.
Hmm.
So that's how you can gain access here. If you have an emergency, though, just go to a hospital. They will figure it out. I have used like random hospitals throughout Europe, and the highest bill I've ever had was $30, and they were like apologizing to me. Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah.
I don't
I went
even
to a
know how to
private
react.
dermatologist. I was like, I'm getting this skin rash. Please help me. And she's like, I'm so sorry. You're not like you're publicly insured, not privately insured. We're gonna have to charge you for this. And I was like, here's my credit card. Do your worst. And so this poor woman is like uncomfortably shaking, be like, I'm so sorry we have to charge you. Like in any other circumstance, we wouldn't. I'm like, what's the bill? Am I gonna give you my spleen? What? $30.
$30? What? I'm
$30
so I'm so
for
sorry for just blowing out the eardrums of the listeners, but holy crap, that's insane to me. Like $30 is the most you've ever spent on healthcare. I spent $30 on like a prescription refill. Like that's
ah.
mind-blowing to me. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
So
gosh.
here's another great hack. Take that prescription and go to the UK because there's a cap on how much prescriptions can cost. It's like £8 26 or something really specific like that. So it doesn't matter if you're getting chemotherapy, like supplements, or if you're getting like a prescription grade ibuprofen. It will never cost you more than £8 26 or whatever it is.
That is truly mind-blowing to me. We have such a messed up system here, and I get it that the US is a much larger country, so it takes a lot more time to figure solutions out, but woo. All right,
Hmm.
the appeal of moving abroad just keeps increasing for me. um
And if you are also feeling inspired, join my Move Abroad Masterclass,
yeah.
which will be linked in this session. Thanks so much,
Yes, it will. Down in show notes. Okay, Vanessa is the queen of plugging herself organically. I love it. Okay, and then I had one more question that came to mind that I do get asked a lot, and I don't know if you'll know the answer to this or not because I know it's complicated and it depends on the country. But let's say you had spent, the first 10 years of your career in the United States, you were contributing to a traditional IRA, you were contributing to a 401k, and then you decide to move to Germany. Let's use Germany as an example. Do you know when they retire with a 401k, with a traditional IRA, are they going to be paying taxes both in the US and in Germany? Or is it just kind of like it depends?
Unfortunately, it depends. You have places like Costa Rica where your foreign income isn't taxed. So that would
Mm.
be a great place for you to get the most bang for your buck for your retirement accounts. You can also use the foreign earned
Foreign
income
earned income.
exclusion.
Yeah.
Yes, to exclude some of your income from those retirement accounts if you are living abroad for a significant amount of period or coming back. It is a combination of filing techniques that could really drive down your pension contributions. So pick wisely the country. I would recommend Costa Rica or Portugal. They have the most favorable tax situations for foreign earned income. And
Okay.
then something that people don't know is when you're using the FEIE, you can actually claim back the tax that the government takes from you automatically because you're outside the country and you're filing the
Right.
FEIE.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a pensioner and you are living on a shoestring budget or something very, very specific, there are ways for you to maximize your lifestyle and lower the amount of tax that you're paying abroad.
Yeah. Okay. Another reason to work with a professional because it is so country dependent. And there are definitely, it sounds like, ways to get around it, but it just depends. And you want to make sure you're not messing this up because you don't want to end up in jail or prison in the country you're residing in, or, oh, the US government, lots of money.
Agreed. Good luck to Shakira. She's super cute, so I'm sure she'll do super well in prison.
Yeah, heard it here first.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Good luck to her. That's you would think with that amount of wealth that she has, she had someone working for her. Like how did this happen? She needs to fire whoever her accountant was. But man, what a bad situation to
Agreed.
be in. And like you're
So
not
this is
immune to
what I
it.
posted. No, you're not. And this is what I posted on my social channels as well. If a A-list celebrity like Shakira with all of the like disposable income at her feet that's possible, if she is still getting caught and you're just like a one person trying to like be sneaky, the amount of money you're going to need to pay these lawyers and accountants to get you out of that mess and out of jail potentially is going to far outweigh anything you would have owed in tax. That's just the
100%.
reality.
100%. Like, and I think too, and this is like a whole other tangent, is like, I feel like it shouldn't be that way here in that if you accidentally messed up, it shouldn't be prison time. It shouldn't be like, oh, you didn't hire the right person and like, you messed up or whatever. It shouldn't be like and I think most of the time, if it is an honest mistake, it isn't, prison time, but you still got to be careful and you can't be trying to beat the system. The system will beat you.
Yeah. I think an important qualifier is that she had a history of doing this. So this was like multiple years that she
Yeah.
was doing this. I read that they even sent like IRS agents to her nail salon to like figure out what she was spending her money on and expensing for business. So like they built up a case against this woman and they will build up a case against you. Stop listening to gurus on TikTok that are 15-year-olds and are telling you like this is how you don't pay tax in this country. No, ma'am.
Yep.
They are living in
No.
their mom's basement. They've never paid a bill in their life. Stop it.
Yes, 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 yes. Always do your own research. Hire professionals when you need professionals. And Vanessa's already listed a bunch of great resources, including some of the resources that she has to offer. So I will definitely leave those down in the show notes. But my expat taxes, I know, is one that you recommend over and over again. So if you've got an affiliate link, send it to me and I'll put it down in the show notes. But okay, I have a couple more questions for you. My first question, or well, I think I got two more left. If somebody is interested in moving abroad, what are like the top 3 tips you have for them, specifically for someone who is trying to get a job abroad? Because I know you've got resources to help folks with that as well.
Totally. Well, the first and most important like thing to consider is what country values the work that you do. So certain countries have labor shortages, and so that skill set will help you get a job more fast or more quickly for less money and for less effort. Um, Other countries will be not so kind to that skill set or even your age. Like age is a big issue. Australia's working holiday visa. Once you're over 35, you're no longer eligible for it. Yeah, yeah. So I got
Wow.
like 4 more years to get to Australia or like give up that visa dream. Work visa. And like there are different ways to get in. So first figure out what country values the work that you do and you as a person.
That is such a good
Secondly,
tip. I didn't think of that because even like thinking back to us teaching in China, it was so easy for us to go teach in China because they wanted English teachers so bad. And they specifically wanted English teachers from the US. And so it was such a breeze getting my visa there. Whereas if I was trying to get a visa to teach English in Spain, they would have been like, you got to pay us a bunch of money. You don't get paid a lot of money. You get no stipends. You get no flight credits because they got teachers from the UK. So they didn't value Americans coming to teach there. But China was like, Come, we will pay you everything. You will live like a queen.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. And that's the trick when you first get
Mhm.
out. The second thing is you want to focus on industries that will enable you to move abroad because it will allow you to pass the labor market test. So in every country, no matter where you go, there's always a labor market test, and that basically says that you can do something that the company needs and couldn't find locally.
Mhm.
Now, this seems super scary, but in reality, the company can justify how you fit the labor market test in a variety of ways, whether that is language skills, experience in a specific market. Maybe they have like a really niche thing that they want you to do. I know a friend who actually justified her UK visa by saying, "Oh, you want to break into the American market? I am American, let me do that for you." And so they changed the wording of the job posting that they sent out to reflect word for word her specific
Mm.
skill set and resume. And so then they just took it to the immigration office and they're like, look, the job posting had the exact skills that she had. So we passed the labor market test.
That's smart.
And so yeah, it's not as difficult as people think. What people get tripped up on is one, they like blindly apply to all of these vacancies without knowing anyone in the company, without a network. That is a surefire way to fail.
Mm.
Secondly, they don't advocate for themselves. They don't try to like slide into people's DMs. I stalk people on Twitter for my job in Germany. I really try to do the non-traditional stuff because I knew that that would make me stand out. And I also add everyone at the companies that I'm interested in on LinkedIn. So they think like,
Mm.
oh, does this girl know people at that company? Because she already has a
Mhm.
network. So these are some of the like top ways to help secure a job abroad for yourself.
That's so sneaky. I love it. And like I also just love the initiative because it's like this kind of stuff, like if I was looking to hire somebody, that level of initiative automatically makes you stand out from everybody else. I don't care what your skill set is. If you are willing to go above and beyond for things like that, it's like there's no way you're not going to get noticed. Like even like I've heard of people who have applied to jobs and they'll send a video resume. And I'm like, that's freaking genius. Like if you can do that, which everyone can do that. Like doing anything on video is so easy these days, but like showing who you are through a video rather than just like a piece of paper, I feel like that's genius.
Agreed. And if you're pitching people like clients or like contracts, video resume or video introduction freaking nails it every time. I almost
Amazing.
hired some random guy on Instagram because he also sent me a video resume
Oh
about how
my
he can help my
gosh.
sales funnel. And I was like, if I really needed help, I would hire you, but I think I'm okay. Great job. You'll get them next time, kid. But
Yeah.
we love to see initiative and those extra steps being taken.
Right, because it's just like even just hiring a side hustle, somebody who has a side hustle or somebody who has a business and are still looking for a 9 to 5 job, to me that shows this person has an entrepreneurial mindset. And the entrepreneurial mindset hits different. Like you are going to go the extra mile, you are going to take that extra step and you're probably going to get it done a lot faster than somebody else who's like not motivated in the same way.
Yeah, and actually, I have a side story. Oh, my English is bad tonight. Sorry, guys. Um, so the job that I'm currently doing today, it's hard, but it's a six-figure job in a city where the average is like 55,000 euro for what I do in Berlin. I also got a remote contract, which is like not typically possible at my company. The
Mm.
reason I was able to get all of these things was because I used Wander Onwards as an example of my ability to create and monetize a product. And
Mhm.
I not only did I get this job, I got a second job offer from a major German bank who was like, we need these entrepreneurial skills. We cannot like buy them here in Germany. So we will be competitive and like match whatever offer that you get as well. And so for the first time in my life, the little girl who sent 250 resumes in London for her first 30,000 pound job per year, she got two six-figure offers in Berlin that were double the going rate in the market. So
That's amazing. Yeah. That's a
yeah, it
and
was wild.
I feel like that's what's so cool about the side hustle. I remember folks when I first started out being like, well, Isn't it like, aren't you concerned that your job is gonna like fire you because they see you doing all of this work on the side, or like you're not gonna be able to get another job because you have this? And like to me, it's like it's a huge asset. It's like my work as Clover Money Coach. Now, obviously, I quit my full-time job to do this full time. So, eventually it was an issue for them, but it wasn't because of Clover Money Coach. It was like it didn't compete, but it showed the fact that like I am a go-getter. I am somebody who is willing to get whatever needs to get done. And if I ever needed to get a job again, who wouldn't want to hire me? Look at what I built from nothing.
I'll hire you. I'll give you a job.
Exactly. And that's what I tell people is like, there's no downsides in my opinion, unless you're a direct competitor to where you work.
Correct. Or if you are dabbling in like some sexual kind of content stuff,
Sure.
like yeah. But other than that, like entrepreneurial skills you can't buy. You can
You
only
can't.
make or be born with it. So
Yep.
let that freak flag fly and test
Yes.
things, learn, evolve as a person because it'll to what you were meant to really do since you're finally focusing on something that brings joy instead of brings money.
Yeah.
And that's why every day I'm like, I don't want to quit my full-time job. I got it because it allows me to be an entrepreneur full time and I'm making a stack load of cash. So I don't need to go anywhere.
Yes, heck yes. And you're getting that pension and you're getting all
Mhm.
those perks as well. So I love it. Okay, any final tip before we move into my final question, but it's a fun question.
Okay. I would say that a lot of people come to me and they're like, "Oh, I'm so on the fence about doing this. Like, what's a sign? What's a sign?" I think we need to stop looking for signs and we need to like turn inward and think about what's really best for us. Because at the
Mm.
end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, are you really going to be thinking about whether you chose one account or another, whether you like got the promotion or not? No, you're going to be thinking about the time you moved to China, wrote an article about how you would do anything other than getting married before you're 23, and you basically went broke and made it all back again. That's the shit that you really
Yes.
remember. So stop with the like paralyzed decision making process and just take one step forward, one decision forward, and it'll lead you in more directions than you could ever imagine.
Heck yes, to like in every aspect of your life. Like paralysis analysis is just a waste of time. Pick something and try it. And it's like, I think we spend so much time. I was actually talking to one of my friends yesterday who actually used to live in Berlin, but he's in France now and he's an expat living there. We were talking about his options and things like that. But anyway, he was like, Chloe, he just got a job as a data analyst. And he's like, I think I never want to make above $110,000 a year. And I was like, what? I was like, why are you telling yourself this? And he's like, because above that amount, you get all these extra duties, you got all this extra work, there's more expectations. And I go, you don't know that. I was like, you have no idea until you've tried what the future holds and what that next level in your career holds. When I was making $130,000 a year, I was doing less work than what I was doing when I was making $42,000 a year. So this idea, these false truths we tell ourselves sometimes, we got to look at it and be like, is this just something I'm telling myself because I'm scared or because I think I know what's going to happen? If you don't know what's going to happen, which most of the time we don't, give it a shot. You can always take a step backwards, but you only have a limited number of forward steps that you can take and forward opportunities. So it's like, take that opportunity. And then if you decide you want to take a step back, you can, but you got to try it first, and the same with like any realm is like, try it and then make your decision. Like you can't make a decision based off of knowing nothing.
100%. And what a disservice it would be to yourself to like limit that possibility. We
Based
we
off of
get
this,
so
yeah.
yeah, we get so
Yeah.
little time on this planet. Do what you want to do.
Yes, 100%. And do not underestimate the power of getting paid. Oh my God, the power of getting paid, it opens up so many doors. And happiness comes with freedom, in my opinion, and having options. And what gives you that? Money.
Money.
Oh, I love it. And also, as you were talking about that, I just kept thinking like it's like what you were describing. It's like creating your own sign. Like your sign comes from you. It comes from your own feelings and you deciding what that sign is. So create your own freaking signs. Um, okay, my final fun question that I ask everybody is, what is your very first money memory?
Oh no. I remember being a child. So I was not a very like food conscientious child. I had a huge sweet tooth. And at my LA public school, they had like a candy stall that you could get candy from after school. And I remember trying to convince my parents to give me money to get this candy. But what I didn't tell them is I was secretly siphoning that money off to go do something else with it. And like I can't remember what it was, but I was so focused on like percentages. So I'm like, if mom gives me $2, then I can get this much candy if I save at least something that I'm trying to get. So historically, I've always been a hustler. Sorry about hustling mom and dad, but I wish I would have like had the maturity to like apply that to my adult life because like little Vanessa understood and got personal finance, pay yourself first, etc. But this is something I'm going to teach my kids. Siphon money from your parents,
Yes.
y'all.
Oh my God. So I'm sorry, you cut out briefly during while you were explaining that. So can you explain that one more time and elevate if you're listening to this, cut that part out so we can get the good part. So tell it one more time. Sorry.
Okay. So when I was a child in the LA public school district, they had like a little booth that you could buy candy at. And I have a vivid memory of myself asking my parents for money, but I was like doing these secret calculations in my head to siphon off a percentage of that to spend on something later, which I can't really remember what it was. So 5-year-old Vanessa was already thinking, pay myself 10% of whatever it is that I was getting from my parents, and then use the other money to enjoy your life. And I just wish that adult Vanessa would have carried that money memory into my adulthood when the stakes were much higher than candy at my school. But this just goes to show like we're smart enough to understand the value of saving and investing in ourselves. It's just somewhere along the line, we get influenced by different things. We let fear paralyze us as adults. Come back to the 5-year-old trying to siphon money away from her parents. Like,
Yes.
embody that.
I love that, and I can't tell you how many stories I've had with entrepreneurs that relates back to candy when they were a kid. Like, the first money memory, I've had 2 or 3 people say that they used to, like, buy candy and then upcharge it for their friends. I'm like, "You guys are all little candy drug dealers. I love it." And I'm like, there's gotta be some connection with candy and entrepreneurs.
Maybe. Ooh, I'm going to test this if I ever reproduce. Good idea.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that though. That's so cool to see like the mentality that we have as a little kid and like how it impacted us later on in life. Because I had a similar experience of like this basically I had this false belief from the time I was a little kid of being like, oh, boys are good with money and girls are bad with money. And like it like just kind of like snuck into my subconscious for a really long time. It sounds like yours snuck into your subconscious, but it like stayed there for like a while
Mm-hmm.
and then it woke
Mm-hmm.
up eventually by the
Yes.
time you were in China. So I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. One more time, tell us where can people find you? How can they work with you? Tell us all that stuff.
Yep. So you can find out more about me and how to pursue a life of location and financial independence on wanderonwards.co, WANDER, onwards. And if you go to Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok, those are my main profiles and platforms. I like to talk about remote work. I like to talk about where all the high paying jobs are in Europe. And overall, I just really like to create a community of curious people. If you want to learn, if you want to engage, come on down to Wander Onwards. We're having a good time and we're getting paid while doing it.
Yes, love it. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks.
All right, all right. I hope you guys learned a little bit from that conversation with Vanessa. I certainly did. Like, it gets so complicated when you're trying to invest as an expat abroad. And it's unfortunate that it is as complicated as it is. And it's also unfortunate that it's so hard to find experts in that space. But I get it. It's hard because who is an expert in their tax law as well as multiple different countries' tax law. Vanessa is certainly trying to be, but of course, you know, she is just providing her own opinion and her own education and entertainment. So Always reach out to a financial professional or a lawyer if you are looking for information on your own circumstances. But I certainly learned a lot. It's wild to me the way the other half of the world lives. And I feel like now after that conversation, she's making Portugal and Costa Rica and Germany look real good for retirement. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. As always, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps us out a lot and tells us you want us to keep going. But if you are just getting started on your money journey and you're looking for guidance and you're like, Chloe, how do I know where to start? What are the things that I need to do? What budgeting templates do you have? All that good stuff. Check out my free money guide at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/guide. That link is down in the show notes. But that's all I got for you guys today. So I hope you enjoyed this episode and I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.